Here.
Alder Rademacher.
Here.
Alder Bernstein.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the minutes of November 18th and December 2nd?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. We have a couple of appearances tonight. I think first of all, I'll bring Chief Cheney. If you'd like to bring up to introduce a new officer. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. As tradition goes, here is your newest police officer. So new in terms of new to us, but not new in terms of law enforcement. So Jared Bello, and he knows, I gave him a nice forewarning that I'd give him the mic for a couple minutes, as in 10 seconds. But comes to us by way of our wonderful partners at Sun Prairie. So he's got a good deal of experience addressing a variety of calls at Sun Prairie, and we are so very fortunate to have him. He's finishing up his final weeks of sort of lateral field training that we do for experienced officers. So, and here's a report. You're doing well so far. So, congratulations. So, Jared.
All right. Hello, Mayor and Council. Like Chief said, I'm Jared Bello. Just about 3 years of experience as a police officer, and very excited to be here and looking forward to getting to work with you guys in the future.
And he's a Colorado kid, so this weather's nothing, right?
It never got cold like this.
Welcome, officer.
Yeah, welcome.
Nice to meet you. Our other appearance is Bill Graff, who would like to speak for informational purposes only about the Huskisson billboard. Bill, if you'd like to come up to the microphone here.
Thank you, Mayor, alders, and staff. I apologize for reading, but the teleprompter's down, so it's the best I can do. I'm Bill Graff, and I have lived at 119 Copps Avenue since the late 1900s, a few blocks from the proposed billboard site that's on your agenda this evening. Long before Make America Great, we had Keep America Beautiful, a national crusade to beautify our highways. And a major part of that, along with planting wildflowers and not tossing litter out of our car windows, was to reduce visual pollution in the form of billboards. The organization Scenic America calls billboards the junk mail of the highways. And it's not hard to see their point. Billboards make driving along our public roads feel like scrolling through your spam folder. If billboards were email, you'd delete them. If they were real mail, you'd recycle them. And one of the surest ways to tell when you're inside or outside of Monona, Wisconsin, is whether you see billboards. Our city leaders had the good sense to prohibit billboards years ago. Monona got it right. We have a good law. It's easy to understand, easy to apply, and it should be easy to uphold. Our billboard ban is a success story. It's one of the things that makes Monona special. And when you hear billboard on the Beltline, you might think, well, what's the harm? It's all car lots and fast food and strip malls. Well, that may be true of most of the Beltline, but not the part that runs through Monona. Once you get past Southtown and Gerhardt's, the Monona stretch of the Beltline is where you see paddlers on Upper Mud Lake, and wide open views of the Nine Springs E-Way, the Capitol Springs Recreation Area, and the 200-acre Monona Wetland Conservancy, which is our largest city park. That is the visual context for the proposed billboard at Ahuska Park, not the buildings and the photos that the applicants are showing you. Walmart and Gerhardt's are 1.5 miles away, not in view of or anywhere close to where they want to put their sign. The billboard industry's business model is based on distraction. Adams Outdoor Advertising boasts on its website that billboards are, quote, the only medium that can't be turned off or overlooked. And they want to not just distract from that one stretch of the Beltline that could actually be considered scenic, but subtract from it by clear-cutting 30,000 square feet of vegetation in a city park. That's the equivalent of 2/3 of a football field for one billboard. The ordinance allows the city to grant exceptions. It doesn't require you to. Who will be hurt if Adams can't add another billboard to its inventory? Nobody. This is not a local business. They will not go bankrupt. There will not be mass layoffs. There's no hardship. There's no need. I realize that the city would make money on the deal, but if it's necessary to monetize Monona to find new revenue sources, let's not backslide in the process. We don't need billboards to pay the bills. Yes, let's be entrepreneurial, but uphold our standards and make it clear once and for all that when it comes to billboards, the no in Monona means a polite but firm no thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? All right, there is no public hearing, there is no consent agenda. Moving on to council action items under unfinished business. I'm going to be moving some of these items around, just the ease of making things more logical tonight. First item, 1A, the consideration of the retail smoking retailers ordinance. We are going to be removing that tonight, and we'll be bringing that back in 2 weeks. There's an additional adjustment to the ordinance that staff just realized we'd like to make. So the next item, we're going to drop down to 2A regarding the contract for construction management services for the Civic Center campus. And the representative from CD Smith is going to be here to talk about it. Neil, do you want to, and you can ask questions as well. Doug?
Did we want to table 1A then?
Bill, you said we didn't need to.
It's unfinished business.
Which is 1A?
That's the smoking retailer thing.
Oh, yeah.
So-
No, the mayor just pulled it from the agenda just because there's one other thing, so I don't think a motion to table is necessary.
All right, thanks.
Neil, would you like to do your introduction?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Obviously, folks are aware the city's been doing a considerable amount of work evaluating space needs for the building across the street, our city hall and public safety services. Started off with doing some space needs analysis with Bray Architects, who is still on board as our primary design architect. This was back, probably close to a year and a half, I think, since we've been kind of contracted with them. They have been meeting with staff and several members of our ad hoc committee to evaluate some space needs. They've kind of got that largely, probably about a 90% design, I think, ready from a conceptual standpoint. Once that is complete, the next logical step for us to actually proceed into a detailed cost estimate is to contract with the construction manager. Has been the direction that the committee and council has discussed previously. Through a competitive process, we just basically issued an RFP. We had 8 proposals. 4 of them were selected for interviews. 2 of those were selected for additional information. And then ultimately, the committee had recommended CD Smith as our firm to do that. There are essentially 2 levels that we're looking at doing here right now. One is essentially to contract them for the pre-construction services, which is finalizing the cost estimate that we need to basically make a decision as to whether or not, if and when we are going to proceed as a council, if the council wishes to move forward in the project. And then if so, then CD Smith would be basically our lead construction manager on the project. So we would still retain the likelihood of contracting with an owner's rep to assist in the oversight of the project, but through the construction management services that CD Smith would provide, that's also, there's certain acts they would be able to self-perform and actually build on the project. Otherwise, they would also be in charge of supervising those subcontractors. But for now, the key part that we are doing on, and really the only part that is actually we're really approving with the contract, is proceeding with the pre-construction services and finalizing the cost estimate. So
we have a representative from CD Smith who's going to make a presentation and answer questions you have, and then we are then having a presentation from someone from Adams Outdoor Signs. After that, we're going to be going into closed session to discuss both these contracts, but we want you to have the opportunity to hear from each of them and ask questions, and it's not that you can't ask questions at some other point in the process. The C.D. Smith contract in particular is just a first read, so.
Corey, do you introduce yourself and?
Sure. Good evening, Council. Corey Henschel with C.D. Smith. Was part of the entire process from the RFP standpoint. I would be the pre-construction lead for the project, and then as we continue in phases or through the design side, I would remain involved from start to finish. A little bit about C.D. Smith in general, family-owned company since 1936. We have a large workforce in this area, office in Madison. And as we went through the conversations around the contract, I think it was smooth and straightforward, and hopefully you see it that way too. So look forward to any questions, look forward to this process, and looking forward to plugging into the team.
Do you want to talk just a little bit about the services you provide?
Sure. Yeah, so as Neil mentioned, that we will be, from an estimating standpoint, there's multiple phases of estimating throughout this process. It never really ends all the way through. So we'll be at the table as the design is progressing, guiding decisions, I'll say, from a financial or schedule side of things. So, it's our duty to essentially provide options, have a healthy tension within the design team to throw out ideas to minimize cost or provide better quality. So, we essentially are at the table for every design meeting. We don't just come and go. We're part of the process, hearing the feedback, and then ultimately at intervals that are more formal intervals of presenting budgets, we would be here or at what level they're presented, and then working with staff to work through the schedule, phasing, logistics, so that when it gets to a point of, essentially the bidding process, you have a clear picture of what this means, time frame, financials, not just for the what I call hard costs of construction, but also the full, equipment, design fees, et cetera. I'm one person, but there's an army behind me that supplements this, where we again, have in-house engineers from an HVAC and plumbing, et cetera, that's kind of back-checking the feel of it. And then with that, any questions, follow-up, cost studies, we take that and then, report back as the team meets. So, again, I could talk on this for a long time, but, open to any questions or concerns, comments, and want to make sure that we're providing clear communication. I think that's probably the most important part of this process, is just being clear and transparent, and that's our business model, and that's what we'll do.
Does anyone have any questions at this point? Rick?
Yeah, could you just go over how payment is made? I understand there's a percentage fee based on the total dollars of construction, but when along the way do you need a payment from us?
So this first phase is just the pre-construction phase that would be part of the contract right now. So that is essentially, and I'm just picking a time frame, let's just say it's 12 months of pre-construction. We haven't gotten to that point yet of actually putting a schedule together. It would just essentially be billed monthly, just for the time spent on it, capped at that. I think it was $8,000 if I remember off the $10,000 at the top of my head.
We'll take 8, that's okay.
Perfect. So that would just be billed on a monthly basis from an expenditure standpoint for the pre-construction phase. When it gets into the construction phase, if the council decides to go to that route, then it's the fees applied to the invoice value, essentially. So that would be how it would be billed out.
I see. So is it a monthly payment?
Yes.
And
Yep.
And the regular
Yep.
construction phase as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else have questions?
I have one more.
Okay.
I don't understand architectural contracts,
Okay.
and there's a very long one here.
Yep.
What do I need to know, or what does this represent to a common understanding?
Sure. And Attorney Cole, if you want to jump in here too, but ultimately what you have in front of you is an A133 contract. That is a standard across the construction industry. So the contract is designed by the AIA to be, neutral, I'll say, to all parties involved. And then there's specifics that, we've gone through to make it that way. The big ticket items are, what I would look at from your shoes, looking at mine, is, the responsibilities of my job description inside of it. Obviously, the fees and all those pieces are part of that, but also the deliverables that we're required to do on the increments and the schedule that are part of it. And then I think the other major part that, as I've built civic buildings, is just making sure that you know the expectation that we have and vice versa of just the clear, transparent communication and the rules and regulations around that. So that's part of that, and it has very specific parts that, I guess, Attorney Cole, if you have anything to add to that, but I would say that in summary is kind of the high-level piece of it.
Yeah, that's right, Rick. I mean, AIA is a library of construction and architectural forms that are drafted by the American Institute of Architects. They are used throughout the industry. They're very accepted by both parties. We have negotiated a few changes that I can certainly talk about in closed session, but everything Corey said is accurate. It's not the type of contract that they dictated to us or we dictated to them. It's a general template-sized contract used throughout the industry.
So the two things I think you mentioned to look for is your description, your job description, and then the deliverables. Was there anything else we should highlight or look for?
I mean, you can pretty much summarize that whole contract into those two sections, right? I don't know if there's 100 pages or whatever it ended up being, but ultimately that would be the description of it. I believe you've entered in a contract with Bray. It would be a similar concept of what they have to do, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Doug?
Yeah, I thought earlier you referred to the document as an A131 or something like that?
Was it, I think it was 133.
It's an A133. Doug, you're looking at the A201. That's the general conditions of the contract. The GCs are sort of that's the boilerplate general conditions that complement whatever underlying contract there is. So it's the A133 that's the heart of the contract.
Is that part of that attachment?
Should be part of your
I believe so.
Part of it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's in there.
In the middle of those
79.
100 pages, I believe all they're, like, they're both in there.
Right.
They should be, yes.
Okay.
Anyone else? Nancy?
I just want to, again, confirm for everybody's benefit, we're only this evening talking about a $10,000 commitment for cost estimate.
That is correct, Alder.
We're not making any commitments beyond that.
There would need to be a separate action by council to proceed with the construction phase.
I
Absolutely.
just want to make sure everybody understands that.
We really obviously can't make any decision until we have some idea of what this is going to cost.
Right.
And that's what this part of the contract is going to help us come to that number.
The only caveat I would say to that, Nancy, in full disclosure, the way this contract is drafted is you are contracting for the pre-construction services, and that has a provision that we inserted in there that basically says, after that, if the council decides not to move forward, we can terminate the contract without any other further liability. So you can pull the plug at that point. If you elect not to pull the plug, though, this contract says you will contract with C.D. Smith for the
Correct.
construction management services.
But that contract could be 6 months from now, or it could be 3 years from now.
Correct, or never.
True.
Yeah, my only
Or
point
never,
is,
right.
you're sort of saying now,
Right.
if you elect to go forward,
Right.
your CM is going to be C.D. Smith.
Right,
Okay.
Are we also committing to this contract?
that's exactly,
That's what we're
Yeah.
doing.
this
Yes,
contractor,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
this firm,
Anyone else?
understood.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we'll be discussing this in closed session. And I'm sure that Representative Corey or whoever will be back at our next meeting when we actually vote on this. Okay, so thank you very much.
Yep, thank
Thanks,
For
Corey.
coming.
Okay, then I'm going to move down to 1D. We have representatives from Adams Signs, who's going to I guess Neil's going to do a little introduction of this.
Yep.
And then he is here to answer questions as well. We are not going to be voting on that then. We are then going into closed session to discuss that as well.
Exactly. So we'll be shortly turning it over to Mr. Tom Hickey from Adams Outdoor Advertising. Tom has been our primary contact for probably the last year, I think is kind of what we've been looking at. Essentially, just for, I think for everyone's, both council and anyone watching at home, just the background on this. Again, this process is one that has gone through a preliminary staff discussion, also got presented and reviewed at Plan Commission for authorization of a special exception to actually to permit this type of sign, which is required because our ordinance, as it's in its current format, does not allow this sort of sign, which required the special exception process to occur. That is something that is a determination that is finalized by the Plan Commission. That has been achieved at this point. Essentially now, we also got permission from our Parks and Recreation Board to review this project, obviously this being located within a park, to get their review and input as to not only the design elements and concerns, I think, which are actually forwarded to Plan Commission and as part of their review, but then for also consideration for City Council here, as we are now at the lease level, essentially. So essentially, both Plan Commission and Parks Commission have recommended approval at this point. So now we're at the point of trying to negotiate the lease associated with this project that would have it identified here. The basic terms that we are looking at right now, starting off with, would be an initial $80,000 per year with an annual 3% escalator for a 10-year period, with the option of extending to a second 10-year period afterwards basically at the discretion of this body. So those are very high level, the basic terms of that. There are other items in there in terms of funding assistance provided to the Parks Department for basically replacement of trees within Ahuska Park, not on the outside, on the periphery, but actually within the park. There are also conditions that were provided by the Plan Commission as part of their approval that have also been incorporated into the lease, into the draft that has been presented to council at this point. So that's probably just a high level, I guess, overview of that. And I'd like to turn it over to Tom for a quick presentation here.
Yeah, so thank you for your time. Once again, Tom Hickey here representing Adams Outdoor Advertising. And thank you, Neil, for the background. Like you mentioned, we received a recommendation of approval from the Parks Committee, I believe in September. Much of the discussion in that committee was kind of surrounding the landscaping around the sign, where we ultimately, came to agree that Adams would like to donate $20,000 to the Parks Committee to kind of take care of that landscaping around the sign. But in the act of restoration during construction, Adams will make sure to kind of repair any, disturbance to the park that would possibly happen during construction. They would also, very conscious of the oak trees that are around the proposed site. We've, talked about that with the Parks Committee. And after construction, Adams would continue to kind of maintain the area immediately around the site, like mow the grass and keep the area looking clean. Then we went to Plan Commission in November, where Neil mentioned we were received kind of the recommendation of approval for a special exception. So what I have here today is kind of coming back with some more information that we've been asked for through the kind of past council meetings and as well as committee meetings. So the first one being kind of talking about the lighting and the brightness of the sign, which you've been hearing about. I did email a document from Watchfire, which is Adams' preferred, or the manufacturer Adams would be using to build the digital sign, that would create the digital sign faces. And that document was emailed over last week, but some of the details of that were that the sign is limited to no more than 0.3 foot candles above existing ambient light. And the sign also has automatic brightness adjustment. So during the day, it would be at a brightness, it has a maximum brightness of 7,500 or 7,500 nits during the day, and at night that then is lowered to 300 nits. So there is kind of a brightness level adjustment there from daytime to nighttime, and also a standard of no more than 3 foot candles of above existing ambient lights, which are kind of the state and federal guidelines Adams abides by. Adams is also subjected to the FFA standards due to the sign in Middleton being near the airport, which are stricter standards surrounding brightness near the airport, and Adams still operates under those standards as well. So kind of operating under state standards as well as kind of the stricter FFA standards. Then some extra concerns we've heard recently regarding the brightness was a possible housing development in the River Place area. We did some looking into that today after hearing about that development. We do believe that the site is about a half mile or a little bit over from the proposed billboard site, and the billboard is built, on an angle off the monopole to be directed towards the road. So we do believe, looking at it now, and we can, get some kind of more mock-ups, that the way the sign will be positioned will not be having light kind of towards that possible future housing development, and is really kind of angled and focused on the Beltline, as that's who's, kind of the targeted audience of the sign. Adams also, along the process, reached out to, I believe, North Point Development to talk about kind of the White Horse properties, and they did not have any concerns on the sign either regarding possible brightness kind of extending the other way, I believe east up the Beltline towards that housing development. So we really feel like it's kind of the perfect spot, and that's where we kind of talked about in Plan Commission that this is really the ideal site for a sign of this nature on the Beltline because of its, nature surrounded by commercial parcels like the Metro Market, but also then reducing brightness and shouldn't be visible from residential properties. The next thing I wanted to talk about was just city advertising is something we've kind of talked about along the way. So Adams is proposing to advertise for 5 city events, and each event would receive a week-long advertising campaign leading up to the event. So it would be ultimately kind of 5 weeks a year of advertising. The Monona team would be able to use kind of the Adams design team to help with those events. But not only event postings, Adams also, the benefit of these digital signs is because they can change so quickly. We do work with the Wisconsin Crime Alert Network to ensure that things like Amber Alerts and Silver Alerts and those type of things are just automatically uploaded onto the sign instantaneously. So city staff won't have to reach out to Adams if there is an emergency like that. It will automatically be posted. Also, things like public service announcements. Adams currently works with the state DOT as well as the Wisconsin Outdoor Advertising Association on public service announcements campaigns. So currently Adams advertises things like, click it or ticket, kind of buckling your seatbelt while driving, as well as no texting while driving and some of those things. For Monona-specific public service announcements, that is something Adams would support. It would just be kind of a case-by-case basis that Monona would reach out to Adams, and Monona would be given a contact person directly at Adams to talk about those public service announcement postings. Also, Adams does operate in the state of Wisconsin. Their office is up the road, and they have a nonprofit program they call their Adams Collaborate program, which is about 5 to 6 nonprofits are chosen a year, and they receive a an ad campaign that lasts a year that is valued at about $250,000. Some recent recipients you might see around the area would be the Tenant Resource Center. Free Bikes for Kids has been up, as well as Sustain Dane. And the program has been going on for almost 10 years with about 5 to 6 recipients a year. And that application process is done in the fall, and then they receive those advertising campaigns for the following year. So Adams really is passionate about ingraining themselves in the community. A lot of the advertisers you'll see on Adams billboards around the area are businesses that operate and are from Madison. That is something they're very passionate about, is kind of, being ingrained in the communities they are in. So they would love to kind of, they work with chambers of commerce in the areas they operate in to try and, get more local businesses up using their advertising. That's something they would be doing here as well. And then lastly, just wanted to touch on kind of the site plan. Adams will be having an updated site plan with fully engineered and permit-ready plans ready to be submitted as well. So with that, I guess I would take any other questions.
Rick?
The access road, does that follow the property boundaries pretty much to get to the sign from Broadway?
So access we have talked about through committee would be, there was a period of time where we talked about building an access road, but as far as building the sign, that would be done using kind of industrial strength matting through the middle of the park to protect the park. And then that's also temporary, so that as soon as the construction's done, which construction takes about 1 week from start to finish, that matting will all go away, and then Adams will, restore any disturbed area. But really, any access after construction is very limited. That is the benefit of the digital signs. It's not the same static signs where you would be seeing a crew go out there every week to put on a new ad. Basically, there is, almost no maintenance for the actual sign that is needed once it's up. The faces themselves need to be replaced every 13 years or so, but unless there is like an electrical outing or something like that, very little maintenance would need to be done besides mowing the grass and just making sure everything looks nice around the sign.
The earlier iteration of this in 2012, I think,
Yeah, I think you're right.
included a solar panel to power the sign. Is that feasible with something of this sort?
I would, I don't manufacture the signs, so off the top of my head, I would feel like it probably is, but I don't want to guarantee it now, but I think that's something they can look into. Adams is very good about, adapting to the local communities. They had once again, that same sign I mentioned in Middleton actually has like routers and things on it, so it's giving off Wi-Fi to the near park in Middleton. So Adams does work hard to look for different avenues to make the signs better fit their community. So I think a solar panel or something like that is something they could look into.
To Alder Bernstein's point, I read that you are a participant in MGE's Green Power Tomorrow. Any idea what percentage of participation you're at?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get you that for sure. Said MG.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions? Nancy?
Yeah, at the Plan Commission, going back again to Rick's point around the original proposal, one of the things that in the packet that came to the Plan Commission, one of the things that was in the packet was the design of the original sign, which, as you know, is very different from the current sign. In that instead of being on a high pole, it was more with the stone around the bottom and kind of facing out to, in a V, out to the belt line as opposed to Kitty Wampus. And one of the things that the Plan Commission asked at the time is about the difference between the two, and would Adams consider a warmer treatment rather than just a solid pull, and also some concerns around the height. Did you ever do anything with that?
Yes, Adams is, working on it. I think they would love a little bit more feedback as far as, what they would like, what you all would like to see in the sign is, Adams has just been kind of continuing forward with the permit plans or the permit application that was submitted. I guess if something else needs to be submitted, I think Adams will look into doing that. I think what is most of importance for Adams with this sign is getting two faces on the sign, because that is probably the main difference between the two. The application back in 2012 versus the application now is the extra face. So I think that's something Adams can put a plan towards. I think with some more kind of feedback and more design input, I think Adams could submit something else that would include some of those characteristics.
Nancy?
Yeah, just another unrelated question to that, which is, over the last 20-plus years, there appears to be quite a few cases in the Wisconsin Circuit Court involving Adams and other entities, some of which are municipalities, some of which are not. And I'm just, would like to hear from you as the representative from Adams, if that's something, if you're sitting in our chair, is that something we should be concerned about?
I guess if the lease document is signed, Adams always operates by the way the lease is written. So I think in past examples of operating with cities, or I think those cases you would have looked at would be situations where it wasn't, the city wasn't the landowner, I guess I'd put it that way. And Adams anytime has a very good relationship with all their landowners and their lessors, and I would say this would be no different.
The city was not the landowner in the,
They're private.
Or private property, the majority of other cases.
Well, I
what
think
am I missing? I'm,
You're saying that the lawsuits that Adams pursued the city, or that wasn't publicly owned land?
Correct. Those would be in situations where there was a private landowner. Adams works with the private landowner to update the sign, then maybe rules have changed. Honestly, I mean, I was not working with Adams when those lawsuits were happening, but I know that Adams has a very good relationship with all their landowners, and would not be looking to get in any lawsuits with the city if this lease was signed and ready to go. Adams would still operate under that lease.
I think, although maybe the confusion is obviously still those signs, even on private property, are still subject to the zoning rules and regulations of the community that they're in. So if there's a challenge of something that's probably where the most often the legal issue is with it's a privately owned and operated, essentially sign, but it's still subject to the rules and regulations of whatever community that is in. So my guess is if there's those legal challenges probably have to do with either the approval process or the specific regulations themselves.
thank you.
I know of one case where it was publicly owned and it was.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying that Dane County was sued when they tried to discontinue a lease. They didn't want to renew a lease and they were sued.
So just for those watching at home, I guess, it's very easy to do a quick little search on the WCCA or the CCAP website. And so to City Administrator Steck-Schulte's point, when you see Adams versus City of Fitchburg, City of Madison, City of Middleton, City of Sun Prairie, it is not the city that is owning the property. It is a private.
In most cases, I would believe that's the case, Alder, yes.
Thank you.
Is someone down there have their hand up?
I
Patrick?
would just caution that looking at CCAT, you don't know it's hard to determine what the context of those
Right.
civil actions were.
Yeah.
It is.
Right.
Because they don't really put summaries. I mean, it's like brief this, brief that, but you don't really know the substance. So, I mean, there's lots of things in CCAT, including, especially with business, any number of things. So it's looking at the quantity and trying to make a correlation. I would just caution that
Yep.
those things that may not be germane.
Absolutely. And of course, it only represents cases that were filed. It does not represent anything that would have been settled without a case filing.
Anyone else?
Well, I guess I have
Sorry, Nancy, I'll be next.
not so much for Adams, but from, no, I have to ask this question not closely. The resolution that we're gonna be voting on was not included in the public packet. So I'm wondering if it's been properly noticed and whether we can even vote on it today.
For Bill?
It's been noticed it's on the agenda. That is all the law requires. So you would be in compliance with the law by taking action, notwithstanding the fact that the resolution itself is not in the public packet.
It's not in the public packet because we'll be discussing it in closed session.
Yeah, and Alder, and simply because of the questions that have been raised in previous closed session as well as whatever comes out of tonight, we didn't feel it was ready for public discussion at this point.
The resolution.
Even the resolution, absolutely. You could have, unless council can tell me there's no other additions or changes to be made on that at this point. I mean, there was no sense bringing it forward unless there was a clear recommendation, and we don't feel we're there at that point yet. So.
Nancy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to follow up on Alder DePula's point and Rick's comment around the county, there's list without even having a legal mind like Bill, and I'm sure Bill could do the same. Attorney Cole to do the same. I could list dozens, if not hundreds of businesses that over a 21 or 22 year period in a major metro area wouldn't show up on this for one reason or another. I mean, it's not, I'm not suggesting, by raising it, I wasn't suggesting that we blow it out of proportion. And I don't think we should.
Any other questions? For Bill?
Tom, I'm Bill Cole. I'm the city attorney. The one thing that should be addressed, staff has asked for, a site plan of where precisely this thing is going to be located in the park.
Correct.
To my knowledge, we have not received that yet.
Correct, and yes, I appreciate that, and we have talked about this with staff a little bit today. The site plan we were working on, we need to have a survey done. Adams, the previous site plan that was submitted was using a survey that was given to us by the Parks Director. I don't know how many years old it was. Typically, during a building process, Adams would have a new survey done of the land with the spot marked on it by the surveyor and Adams Ops Director. So we're in the process of getting that done. We just Adams has not had that done yet because typically they wait until approval to do the survey. But in this case, they will have to have that survey done.
Okay, in fairness though to you, from staff's point of view, and I concur with them, we can't recommend the city council approve a
Right.
lease to place something in a park where we don't know precisely it's going to be at the park. So I would encourage you to get that to the city
Yep.
as soon as possible, because frankly, our recommendation coming out of closed is going to be to table this until we get that from you guys.
Right, totally understand. But getting that survey done, and once that's, that'll be pretty quick to turn around the site plan once the survey's done.
Thank you, Mayor.
Doug?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing, I guess, kind of in response to some of the comments about the CCAP search and so forth. I agree, but some other things could show up in CCAP, and a big business is probably going to get sued a fair amount or be suing. However, there are Sun Prairie, Fitchburg, Madison, more than once, Dane County and City of Middleton have all been sued by Adams, I think as a result, for the most part, of regulatory type decisions, the non-renewal of a lease. And those cases, you can find what's really going on just by a Google search, because those are reported in the local media.
Anyone else? Any questions regarding this contract?
I have a question.
Teresa?
It's my understanding that the contract is, to the point of litigation, it's my understanding that the contract is written in such a way that if litigation were to happen, for lack of a better word, the losers of the lawsuit would be asked to pay the legal fees for
Point of order,
both sides.
point of order. Have we
Patrick?
discussed that out of closed session yet? That's part of contract
That's true,
negotiations.
because
We have not. That's a good point.
Thank you, Alder DePula. Thank you.
anything else that we wouldn't be discussing in closed session?
I did jot down a few things. Thank you for taking our questions. I know it can't be easy to sit
No
over
worries.
there. My colleagues have sort of hit the points that I was most concerned about, but there just are a few little things on the list here. Can you speak to the sign's brightness and how it's, you mentioned how it was automatically dimmed based on the ambient light, but can it also be manually dimmed if needed?
I believe so, yes.
And under what circumstances are you aware that would happen?
Based on my knowledge, I'd have to talk to our ops team who kind of runs these things. I don't know of any recent examples of them, manually dimming the lights. I know that something they look into is the sign's age, that they naturally kind of dim as the sign's age, so that may be when they look into that. But I could get some information on kind of the manual dimming.
might there be a situation where a citizen has a concern or a complaint about the brightness of the sign? And if so, how does that registering of the concern happen with Adams? Is there a procedure that they would just follow? And
Right, yeah, typically there's a procedure. I will be, Adams is pretty good about meeting with the municipalities they operate in, especially in the city-owned signs, and I'm very transparent about, tell Adams if they get any negative feedback, and typically the cities Adams works with don't hear anything back. I guess typically people aren't calling the city hall about billboard brightness, I guess. But if Adams were to receive a complaint about brightness, I know that's something they would investigate and look into if the issue can be addressed. But it's frankly not something that comes up to their office a lot.
And are there certain hours of the evening when the sign would be turned off entirely?
Adams would like to have the sign operate for 24 hours. Based on the fact that they do sell contracts to their vendors based on 24 hours, 7 days of use, that if something like that were to change, they would need to look more into that, on how that would affect their contracts.
That's different than.
Yeah, that's what we were
I
told.
believe that's different than what was presented at, was it Plan Commission?
Parks, I believe.
Parks.
Board, yeah.
Yeah, I know it was discussed at Parks. There are municipalities Adams operates in that have those rules already, then obviously Adams would abide by those rules. But in a situation where, I guess Adams is, if a landowner was asking Adams in a lease situation, would they turn it off at a certain amount of hours? That's something I don't know that they've dealt with previously. It's typically they just operate under the municipality's rules.
But if the municipality asked if you.
If municipality had the
12 to
rules, then
5,
Adams would
they'd do
operate under
that.
the rules.
Yeah.
More questions, Teresa?
No, I think I'm good. Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you. We're going to go into closed session now. To discuss whether inquiry doesn't.
No, I told him, yeah.
You don't need to stick around, because we're not gonna take action on the contract, anyway. So, you're welcome to stay, and come back in after closed session, but we're not gonna do anything. We're gonna be-
Same.
I'll give you a call if we need you, thanks.
Oh, that's right, we're staying in this room.
Thank you.
We are.
Okay, next, item 1B, convene in closed session under Wisconsin statute, section 19.85, paren 1, paren E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require closed session. This relates to both the Adams Outdoor Advertising lease agreement as well as the C.D. Smith contract. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
I'll move.
Second.
Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Humphreys.
Aye.
Alder Moore.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Brown.
Aye.
Alder Bernstein.
Aye.
Alder DeFleur.
We are in closed session.
Give me
We're
a
gonna
second
get the
here,
door.
Mayor, let's, yep.
So I guess we need the motion on the Adams.
I'll move to table the Adams sign contract.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Let me
Thank
get
you.
my picture, let me make sure, Mayor, we got these guys back on last year.
Why does it say the host would like you to?
Well, that's because I just asked her to do it because the
Oh,
microphone was
okay.
off, so.
Bill, we are not going to be voting on the Adams thing tonight.
If you
We're tabling
We're
it.
We
tabling
table
it.
formally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, we just voted to table
just
it.
That one, cool, yeah, thanks, man.
Did you do that in open session?
Just now,
Yeah.
we just
Yes,
voted
we
to
did,
table
just
it.
did.
Before
Yes.
I came in?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
It's a non-debatable motion, so
Yeah.
there was,
Have you voted on it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
did.
We just did.
We voted to table the Adams contract.
I think we're good, Mayor, there we go, yep. Thank you.
All right, now I think we're going to move back to our regular order. Moving down to new business, item 2B,
Or not
something
to-
even more fascinating. Consideration of ordinance 1-25-786, amending chapter 466 of the Code of Ordinances regarding floodplain and shoreland wetland zoning put forth by the Plan Commission.
We're gonna go back at some point to the retailers.
What?
The vape, 1A. Oh, it's completely off, that's right. Thank you.
I
Sorry about
said,
that. Thank you.
just say yes.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go.
No.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Doug.
still there.
The item that we have this evening is a first read concerning possible changes to the city's floodplain ordinances. The reason this comes about is there are now updated flood insurance rate maps as well as updated flood insurance study completed by FEMA. These must be incorporated into a legally enforceable ordinance in order for the city to remain eligible for the National Flood Insurance Program. If we miss the deadlines, if this does not take place, there is an immediate suspension. There is not the option for an extension or anything like that. It is a hard deadline imposed by FEMA. Staff has worked with colleagues from the Wisconsin DNR to prepare an ordinance that meets both the state and federal requirements. It's the model ordinance that's put forward this evening has been reviewed by both city staff as well as the city attorney. And the model ordinance is the minimum requirement that would be needed to meet those state and federal standards. Of course, we can go more restrictive, but we cannot sort of step back from that and go less restrictive to meet those. Two proposed changes have been put forward, again, based on feedback from the Wisconsin DNR. The first was to remove the Tenney Dam study as requested, again, by the DNR. There's sort of a process in place there with some of the mapping that they would like to clarify. City of Madison also brought this up, and they will also not be including it at this time. That would most likely be a future ordinance amendment that would come forward. One of the other standards that we would like to do is to rehouse the shoreline wetland portion of our existing ordinance. To keep that, but to separate it out, we would put that in a different chapter. That would mean that we would no longer be subject to FEMA review of those elements that they do not need to do anyway, but would also sort of continue to cover those elements that are not discussed within this current ordinance. The Plan Commission reviewed these materials at their January 13th meeting. There was a public hearing held there as well, and they recommended to council to adopt the ordinance as presented. Included in the meeting packet is all the details for this. There's a compare ordinance that I do apologize is very messy, just with the way the sort of repeal replace takes place. But if you did look at that and some of the strike through there, you would have seen the shoreline wetland standards. So that was one of the main things to sort of call out there. I did include a clean version of the ordinance as well, just so that it was a little more legible to read. And that does include the strike through for the Tenney Dam. And then also the maps that are included. So these go back to 2009, but we also have maps that are going for 2025 as well. So I do have those materials. We have the maps included, but I also have sort of a couple alders asked what all the paper on my desk was. That's what it was. So happy to answer any questions, but this is just the first read, and I'll be back at the next meeting for this as well.
And Bill, did you have anything to add about this?
No, I was just going to emphasize, and Doug did an excellent job of it, that this is not something staff is just putting forward because we think we need changes. FEMA's shoving it down our throats. You either pass it or you don't, but if you don't pass it, our residents don't qualify for national flood insurance.
That's why I said just say
Say
yes.
yes.
Say
You know, it is what it is.
Doug, did you have a question?
When is the deadline?
So these need to be put in place by the effective date of the maps, which I think is April 9th of 2025, but we have quite a few deadlines before then with which to meet. Wisconsin DNR, their deadline is early March to have this so they can get it prepped and sent to FEMA. And the ordinance also needs to be posted as well and sort of legally enforceable and all those
Right.
things. So that brings us back basically to mid-February. So that's sort of the timing of this. I have shared the sort of proposed timeline right now, which would be the second read at the first meeting in February. That does meet the standards, but certainly we're working with our partners here just to sort of stay in line.
Should we take this out
Gi-
of
I
order?
was just gonna say, given the timeline,
Yeah.
does it make sense to take it out of order?
Right.
I'm just trying to, I mean, having discussed this at Plan and having discussed it with Doug at length, I mean, I just know that timeline jam we're in,
So,
and the number of agencies involved,
yeah.
each with their own.
Doug?
I would just have one question of the rehousing of the ordinance. That has not yet been presented. There's no changes proposed to that, but I don't know from city attorney's perspective if that makes any difference with this.
Yeah, well, the ordinance that's in front of them now, does that rescind the floodplain ordinance?
The intent would be that it repeals and replaces, and it doesn't.
But there's no replacement right now
Right.
for it.
Correct. It would be the same language, but it's just effectively we need to find that new chapter, and that has not fully been presented.
Right, but we don't have that yet, so there would be, if they were to pass it tonight, we're rescinding the floodplain ordinance, and we don't have the new one in place. Yeah, given that, I
Okay.
think the
We've got
better
that
course
understood.
is to just do it in the regular course, and next
We will
meeting
have
we'll
it
have
next
that.
time.
Yes, ma'am.
And that timeline, I do appreciate the suggestion. The original timeline of the February, I think it's February 3rd meeting is certainly appropriate. We'd still meet our deadlines.
Okay.
Brian, did you have something?
Yeah, I'm wondering if Doug or Nancy or Patrick can speak to why there was one member that abstained from the vote.
I was gonna ask the same
Yeah.
thing.
Nancy, you want me to do it or you want to do it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
One member abstained because the ordinance, if you read through it, whether you read through the red line or the clean copy, specifically references things like maps that are part of that ordinance. As Doug pointed out, those are the maps sitting behind him. We have one set, we don't have them electronically, he didn't have the maps. And so that one member was concerned that he was being asked to vote on the change in ordinance without being able to see the maps.
Got it.
Or without some other answers that he would have liked to have had.
Sure. Fair enough.
Anyone else?
I do.
Rick?
Is there a marked difference between the maps of '09 and 2025?
So they're each for portions of the city. So each of I believe it's the 5 maps that would be in total from FEMA for the flood insurance maps. Not too much of a difference for the 2 that are coming forward for 2025. What I would say, one of the big changes is a clear mapping now of the 500-year flood, as well as the 100, which is kind of the standard that they would use. The interesting thing for that is, as we think about emergency management, preparedness, things like that, that is becoming a little bit more, maybe the 200 or the 500 is becoming a little bit more of a benchmark that people are looking at now, because these are not 1 in 100-year events. These are, unfortunately happening more frequently. So that's one of the changes. I'd say at the level that I was looking at, we do not have these imported into GIS yet to really look at sort of a parcel level. There were certainly changes down by the Whitehorse site that I think we're aware of, just with some of the development that's happened there, some of the changes to the maps that have already taken place. But staff didn't really notice many others at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Doug, can you talk about, in terms of the changes you did see, those mostly like were in backyards in terms of like not affecting structures in that case either? I think that was the important point.
Yes, I would say generally, the question did come up at Plan Commission, sort of the impact of the floodplain and sort of our residents, of course. And what I would say, generally, most portions of the city, parcels are within the floodplain, but it may be the backyard or it may be sort of the shore area, of course, but not all the way to the house. There are certainly portions that are more impacted. Belle Isle, absolutely. They already are and, will continue to be, would be my expectation. But certainly Winnequa, Tony Walther, for example, there are portions, properties that if we were to count how many properties are in the floodplain, for example, the count would be higher, but it would not impact the build structures, for example, the buildability.
Do you have one more question?
Rick?
Do people who are in the floodplain, they know that, right? Because their home insurance probably requires that they take out flood insurance?
They should know, Alder.
Yeah.
Right, it's just
They should,
they
but
should,
you're
in terms
saying
of like property records, I was like, there's pretty clear that it's on there. However,
it's not always the case.
it's not always the case that they're aware. If they've never had a flood incident or anything they've had to deal with, it's never something they've had to.
The fact that they pay flood insurance isn't enough for them to know.
You never know.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, well, we will wait till next time. And then our last item, C, consideration of ordinance 1-25-785, amending chapter 480 of the Code of Ordinances regarding signs, canopies, awnings, and billboards, put forth by the Plan Commission. Doug again.
Thank you. So again, this is a first read for possible changes to the city signage regulations. These proposed changes would align with the directive to streamline meeting agendas, given both upcoming projects that we have as well as long-range planning items on the horizon. The changes proposed delegate review authority of signs that meet the stated standards to city staff. This does still allow for Plan Commission review of comprehensive signage plans, which are typically larger scale developments that would have multiple signs viewed together. So it makes sense to see those all as one. The most recent comprehensive sign plan, for example, was at Topgolf, if that helps council members. And then also for those seeking an exception to the city standards that are already laid out, that would still be an appeal or a request that would go forward to Plan Commission. One thing I wanted to clarify here is no changes are proposed to the code itself regarding dimensions, permissible signage, etc. This is simply just the review authority of the signs themselves. So a public hearing and review was held at the Plan Commission meeting on January 13th, and this was recommended 7-1. The recommendation did include keeping the pylon signage review at Plan Commission. Pylon signs, 30-foot tall signs, 200 square feet maximum sign area, and these are sort of delineated by the parcel map that we do have for pylon signs. I think the intent here of the Plan Commission was really that these are larger signs, may well honestly be coming through under a comprehensive sign plan anyway, but really they would like to see those and still think that that's an important element. That was not reflected in the latest draft that's put forward, but if that's the will of the council, certainly between the first and second read that change can be made. Just with the way the edits were made, it's not an easy thing to sort of pull out and redo, but can certainly work on that language between if that's the will. So first read tonight, but certainly happy to answer any questions.
Anyone, Brian?
I have the same question. So there was one member that voted no at Plan Commission. Can you share some of the reasoning?
I can certainly share that. I think there were some concerns. Well, firstly, there were concerns about some of the text and some of the content of the ordinance, which absolutely is not changing. The changes here were really just where it said Plan Commission, zoning administrator. This was really the change. And I think one of the other concerns was there are the commission member that voted against feels that the Plan Commission has added value to some of the signage applications that have come through. And probably there's more opportunity or leverage at Plan Commission than there may be at city staff level. I think there was support for current staff, but there was also a concern that, you know, staff change and perceptions change, that delegating this out may be a challenge. So I think there were sort of the reasons for it generally, and the request to sort of still see these to come forward, I think was that preference.
And I would just add to that as the chair that the ordinance itself, and as chair, I pointed out that this does not prevent in any way, shape, or form, whoever our plan person is, plan director is, from bringing a sign, any sign, to the plan commission. It doesn't say the administrator has to approve every sign that fits, you know. It says the administrator may approve. So it just means that that signs don't always have to go in front of the commission. And the rest of the commission was very comfortable with that because it's something we've talked about before. But, yeah, so obviously. And I'm assuming, like, for instance, a new person, if there was a new person, you know, I'm assuming that new person would probably err on the side of bringing things to the commission initially, right? If they weren't sure. But, yeah, but that's why.
Doug?
Yeah, this seems like a great idea that will save a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
time for Doug,
Yeah.
putting
Yep.
packets together
Yep.
and so forth, that outweighs, you know, the added value from the Plan Commission on these signs anyway. What did you guys think from Plan Commission's view about pylon? Keeping the, as Doug had described, keeping that as part of a staff review or commission?
Yeah, we were debating back and forth at Plan Commission, and I think that was just an idea to move. It was something that was put in there because a couple members were concerned about the pylon signs needing more attention, I suppose, right, Nancy?
Yeah,
That's
I
kinda what they were
mean, I
thinking.
can't really exactly remember what the concern was, honestly. Do you remember?
I think some of it was the rarity of these coming forward, that to put that on the agenda would not be, you know, as burdensome as, let's say, typical wall signs or something like
Right.
that. And I think just their scales and their visibility would constitute Plan Commission review. I think they would.
I mean, the irony is a lot of times the pylons, as Doug already pointed out, come through as part of an overall sign package,
Yeah.
which is gonna would come to us anyway, the overall sign package, so.
Neil, did you have something to add?
I would just, I've certainly challenged Director Plowman to grab onto as much of this as he was comfortable with. I would assume that if he is successful in implementing these changes, that we very well may be encouraging him to come back and to be moving the pylon signs into the same category sometime in the future. So.
Okay, my understanding was right now, pylon signs could be approved by the zoning administrator under this proposal.
Under this proposal, which differs from the action that the Plan Commission had made,
okay.
that recommendation was.
Okay.
Anyone else? Are we all complete zombies by now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Doug, you go home.
Thank you, Doug.
Yeah,
Good night.
thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you. We will move on to reports of committees, commissions, et cetera. Alder Wood.
No report.
Alder Moore.
Just a few things. One is, the Plan Commission, had a pre-hearing on a new workforce or affordable housing, senior affordable housing developments, at its last meeting, and it was received very well. It would be done by North Point Development, the same developer that did Broadway lofts and townhomes, and across the street from it, essentially on the west side. 55 and up, an active senior community. Obviously, it was a pre-hearing, but people were very impressed. The tour, just a reminder that the City Council and Plan Commission has been invited for a tour of Broadway Lofts and Townhomes on February 5th from 2 to 4 p.m.
I think that's their kind of grand opening, isn't it?
I believe so, yeah.
Yep, yep.
February 5th, what were the times, Nancy?
2 to 4
2 to
p.m.
4,
on
yep.
February 5th.
And if there's, we're,
Which
I
must
think,
be a Wednesday.
it is a Wednesday. I think we're
Yeah.
double checking to see if there was actually a ribbon cutting or anything associated with that ceremony also. If there is, we'll certainly get that time out to everybody.
Okay.
So.
Great. And then I would just say, the Transit Commission, we're continuing to work on marketing, for the launch of Madison Metro on March 3rd. And in fact, the bus stop signs have been created. So all the posts that you see all over town that don't have any signs on them will soon have bus stop signs on
Glad
them.
they got those in before we had all this pull.
Yeah, yeah.
So are they, Mayor. So.
Hey, we're still, you know, we got plenty of time. No, we're on schedule. They're not only gonna be putting they're not only gonna be putting the actual signs on, but they are going to be putting a sign below the sign, the permanent sign that says, coming March 3rd, that will be, that'll be mounted with like a cable tie so that it can be taken off. 'Cause they're concerned about not putting the signs up too soon, is that people will go and stand by the bus stop when it's
Well,
minus
right.
11 out, think the bus is coming, right?
Yeah.
So-
Those will be interesting comments on next
As
year.
part of that process, there's some really beat-looking older signs. Are they removing some of, I would doubt if all of those are gonna be stops on the new one, maybe they are. Are those being removed, you know, like in front of the library, there's one.
I don't know. Once
'Cause
again,
we
the
should have
EOI,
Public
I don't
Works.
know.
Yeah, I'll double check.
Public
with-
Works or whoever removed
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I mean,
think I-
Public Works
Yeah.
is working with them, so
Yeah, I think Director Stefani my guess is he was planning on removing
Yeah.
those. But
Yeah.
I will confirm with that, Mayor.
Yep.
I'll double check that.
And also related to transit, tomorrow from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Is a meeting at the senior center for anyone. It doesn't have to be for seniors, but it's at the senior center, for anyone interested in paratransit, and Madison Metro will be there to help seniors fill out applications, to answer any questions.
That's great.
And they are also going to be doing several other listening sessions, like at the library and other things we've scheduled that they've offered. And their Metro's going to go with Diane to Monona Hills, and they're going to go to several. They're going to do personal visits too. They've been terrific. And I might add that Teresa Alder Rodemacher has been terrific too. We're operating with a very thorough spreadsheet for marketing, and we are meeting with Metro every single week. Every Friday we meet with Mick, who's been terrific.
Checking off our to-do list. And
Yep.
just keeping on track.
Yeah.
One of those things includes an interview on Conectados with Shalene Sorate, so we'll have a Spanish-speaking audience
Yep.
that we'll meet. Good,
Yep.
be great, yeah.
Yep. That's all I
that it?
have. That's it.
Alder Holmquist,
No report.
Alder DePula.
What Nancy said.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Alder Bernstein,
No report.
Alder Rademacher.
Really quick, Landmarks meets next week. We were meant to meet tonight. Tourism met, and we awarded 4 grants to, in no particular order, the 4th of July Festival, the Monona Marathon, Friends of San Damiano, and the Aldo Leopold Nature Center. So we had some outstanding, really great applications. And Nancy covered transit already, and then one thing I'll just close with on sustainability. We're really very pleased with the progress made so far on the new the pilot of the Monona Tree Program, which you're free to search mymonona.com to learn more about it. During this first year, the intent is to keep this program really small so we can sort of prove the concept and not overcommit too much. We won a grant from the DNR to move forward with this, and it's really just about building the program with those grant dollars so that we can have it sustained throughout future years when those grant dollars run out. So Missy and Parks and I have been working together to build out the website, and it looks fantastic. Please give it a look. If you're interested in ordering a tree and piggybacking on the Parks order, your order is due the end of February, February 28th for April delivery. And you can even request delivery to your home and assistance with planting from volunteers. So really cool program.
City Attorney Cole, do you have anything?
No report.
City Clerk?
Yes, we are having a February primary in Monona. Absentee ballots will go out by next Tuesday. In-person voting at City Hall is February 4th through the 14th, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
And the election's the 18th.
The 18th of February.
Okay. Neil, did you have anything?
Just a couple of items, working on kind of a fun project with Kelly Slack and the Memorial Day group in terms of, and also with our Public Works Department. If folks have been to other communities and have seen banners recognizing veterans, we're actually working on a possible project here in Monona in time for the parade, possibly in May. So we're getting some samples made. They would essentially be no cost to the city other than staff time to put them up, which Jeff Johnson has assured me he has time to do. Told him to make sure he wasn't kidding me, because obviously spring is a busy time. But we'll probably be bringing something forward to the council to kind of review what the banners look like and explain the process. We're looking at that. Kind of just working with Kelly in this first year, but they really don't have an interest in being long-term folks to kind of manage this, so they're kind of stepping in and helping out this year a little bit. But the vendor has actually been working this on, and it did a similar project in Sun Prairie and looking to kind of replicate it here. And it is a great project, and some of our banners on Monona Drive are looking a little rough. So it might be a good time to try this as a little bit of a kind of a pilot program to see if this is going to be something we can do going forward. Ideally, I think my desire would be to have something there, if we're handling the city, that the city could actually use some of that revenue to maybe put into a fund long-term to help maintain the Veterans Memorial. It's not going to be an enormous fund, generator, but at least maybe a good thing to get some seed money started on that.
We have a little money for that, but not a lot.
Yeah, so something to give us a little bit more going forward on that. Just wanted to see, we are working on Leah Kimmel, Director of Administrative Services. Leah Kimmel and myself are working on kind of identifying an online software package to help with our policy manual. So we have them all kind of in one place. They're available online. Everybody can access them and find them. We can update them. We can track changes when we make them. So there's a lot of advantages to doing that. We're kind of had demonstrations from a couple different vendors, and we're having proposals we're kind of taking a look at. This is one, obviously, that is Leah's backyard, and I said, you need to be the one to say that this is the way to go, because she's going to be using it and implementing it more than anyone. So hopefully that continues and does well. Starting to get calls from other communities asking about our referendum efforts. Had a half-hour phone call with the city of Onalaska the other day with their asking, said we've already pretty much stolen your entire website and recreated it, and never complimenting, but had really good conversation with them. Mayor and I are actually doing a presentation at the Dane County Cities and Villages Association about lessons learned and our observations about our process that we went through there.
Along
that's
with
coming
some
up.
other local.
Yeah, 3 or 4. I think there's 4. Yeah, and that's actually on January 29th is actually when that event is going to be. Also, just wanted to let folks know, just working today with Representative Stubbs' office on going to be doing a listening session next Monday night at the library, I believe from 6 to 8, just regarding the Abundant Light shooting, and just kind of having a listening session for that. She called
In this room, right?
in this room here. We just asked for some, if we could help provide a room, so we were fortunately able to accommodate, since Plan Commission is not meeting. next Monday. We were able to take up that room, so that, we'll make sure and formally get official information that, we'll certainly share that with council. I have an appointment to set up to meet with Eric Dundee, the new executive director from the Madison Metropolitan Sanitary District. Eric was actually a colleague of mine at MSA back in the day, so at least nice to know we have a common tie there to meet together with that. So
Well, and someone from his office sent an email to the.
Yeah.
wanting to set up a
contact
tour.
thing,
Yep.
wanting-
That's what yeah.
Is it set up a tour or just a listening session?
I think they're actually looking to offer a tour, I believe, Mayor. Is
Their
actually have
tour is
folks
really
come down there. It is,
interesting.
if you haven't done it, it's
Yeah.
actually,
I
it
do
is
wanna
actually
do it.
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is actually pretty quite amazing, so.
Yeah, be
Um,
worth taking up.
so I think those are that's my main updates, Mayor, nothing else at this point.
Okay, and I don't have anything. And we don't have any appointments, so is there a motion to
I
adjourn?
just say one other thing.
Nancy?
We do have Loud in the Library this weekend.
Oh, that's
yeah,
right.
Loudon Libraries on Saturday.
So,
Oh, yeah.
just thought we should mention it.
That's
Loud
exactly.
in the Library. Always a good time, Saturday.
Right.
And support your library.
And I think you can buy tickets at the desk or online.
Yeah.
If you go to the city website, or to the library's website. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.
So